Sure, here is the English translation of the story. Hello, in 1975, in Kalubia Governorate, specifically in the Shubra El Khema neighborhood, lived an 18-year-old girl named Manal. Manal lived with her younger sisters in a small apartment. Their lives were very difficult, especially after their parents died in a car accident. After the accident, everything in their lives changed for the worse. Welcome, I am Kamal El Tahami, and this is The Strangest Cases. Manal and her sisters lived alone, and no one cared about them. Moreover, they had no source of income, and all the money they had was spent on living expenses. Since Manal was the eldest, she had to look for work. She worked in many places, but each time she quit because her obligations, such as her sister's tuition fees and household needs, were greater than her income. Over time, Manal's psychological state worsened, and her debts increased, but she didn't give up. She went looking for a new job and inquired in many places, including a men's clothing store. She also refused to work there because the salary was very low, but after she left, a person followed her out, stopped her, and spoke to her. This person told her he had a job for her at a restaurant. Manal couldn't believe what she was hearing, and immediately agreed without thinking. The man set an appointment and gave her the address. The next day, Manal went at the appointed time, and after meeting the restaurant owner, she learned the truth about the place and the nature of the work. The place was a nightclub, and her job there was to accompany customers. The working hours were from night until morning. When Manal first learned the nature of the work, she was shocked and wanted to refuse. But the large amount of money she would earn made her agree. The nightclub owner bought her new clothes to wear during her work. As for Manal's sisters, she managed to convince them that she had found a good evening job and had accepted it because the money was good, but she didn't tell them the exact type of work. Because her sisters trusted her, they didn't object to the job. 2 days later, Manal went to the nightclub. From her very first day, she caught the attention of most of the people there due to her beauty, and customers began to request her constantly. As the months passed, her money increased. She paid off all her debts and covered all her obligations. One day, Manal was out late at the nightclub as usual, and during her work, a female customer called her over and said she wanted to talk to her. She introduced herself as Madam Lila and offered her a job, explaining that she would earn double her income at the nightclub. At the end of their conversation, she asked her to think carefully and said she would come back to hear her decision, whether to accept or refuse. Manal didn't take long to think and decided that the new job would be better for her because it paid more. The next day, as soon as Manal saw Madam Lila at the nightclub, she went to her and told her she agreed to work for her. Indeed, she left the nightclub and entered a new phase of compromises. Manal started engaging in immoral acts at Madam Lila's apartment. With time, she had customers of different nationalities who would specifically ask for her. As the months passed and money blinded Manal to her shameful actions, a disaster occurred that she hadn't anticipated. One day, while Manal was with a person in the bedroom, she heard screams and rushed out of the room. She was startled and sprang from her place, but she couldn't move or even leave because she was surprised by police officers storming into the room. They quickly pulled her and the person she was with, and she, along with everyone else in the apartment, was arrested. With evidence of engaging in immoral acts, Manal was sentenced to 1 year in prison. During her imprisonment, none of her sisters inquired about her. After serving her sentence and being released from prison, the first thing she did was go to her parents' house, but upon arrival, she found none of her sisters. The house looked abandoned. Upon asking the neighbors about her sisters, she learned that they had moved and left the area, settling in another place. Unfortunately, no one knew their new address. Manal, now alone, lived inside her parents' apartment and hid within its walls, fearing to go out lest she see the gazes of the neighbors and residents of the area. Since she had no money, she became part of the house's furniture to support herself. At the same time, she started looking for work until she found a job as a kitchen worker in a restaurant in a popular area. After accepting the job and working for a long time, she had money. Then she left the family apartment and rented a room on the roof of a building far from the neighborhood where her parents' house was. The new building she lived in had a small fabric shop, and the owner of the shop was a 40-year-old man named Fathi. Fathi was a private man who kept to himself. He had no siblings, and his parents had passed away long ago. He had been married but failed in his marriage and separated from his wife. After his separation, he focused only on his work. On the day Manal moved into the building, he saw her helping the workers carry her belongings to furnish her room. When she caught his eye, he kept watching her to see her every day as she went up and down. After a few days, Fathi thought of getting to know her. Before speaking to her, he followed her for a few days, and after making sure that she was respectable and only went from home to work and from work to home, he felt reassured. He waited for her in front of his shop door. At the time of her arrival, he called her over and spoke to her. introducing himself. Manal was listening to him, not understanding what he wanted, until he surprised her by telling her he admired her and proposed marriage. Manal couldn't believe herself and asked him for some time to think. Fathi agreed and waited for her answer impatiently. 2 days later, Manal stopped by Fathi before going up to the building and told him she needed to tell him everything about herself. But Fathi interrupted her and refused to hear anything about her past life, telling her that he only cared about the future. When she tried to interrupt him, he insisted on his refusal. And when she heard his response and his insistence on not knowing anything about her, she agreed to his marriage proposal. Fathi was delighted with her acceptance, and in less than a month he had everything ready, and they got married. After their marriage, they lived a happy life together. Manal felt safe for the first time in years, and Fathi, in return, provided her with everything she needed and treated her with a kindness she had never dreamed of. As the years passed, Manal gave birth to 2 sons, the elder named Hussam and the younger named Muhammad. She and their father, Fathi, took care of them and educated them in private schools until they finished their education and graduated from university. After their graduation, through their father's connections and good relationships, both of them were appointed to a large and well-known company. Fathi also bought an apartment for Hussam and registered it in his name, and promised Muhammad that he would buy him an apartment soon too. But after they both grew up and started working, Fathi noticed that his sons were constantly staying out late. When he objected, Manal would argue with him and respond angrily, telling him that his sons had the right to stay out late, go out, and do whatever they wanted. She justified her response by saying that they were grown up and men. Fathi rejected his wife's words and her wrong thinking, in his opinion, until one day Fathi finished work and returned home. When he didn't find his sons, and Manal told him they were still out, he remained silent, went into his room, and slept. Manal also went to sleep. At dawn prayer time, Fathi woke up to pray, and was surprised that his sons had not yet returned. At that moment, he became angry and waited for them. At 5:30 a.m., Hussam and Muhammad returned home. But the disaster was that they were heavily drunk, and neither of them could stand on their feet. When Fathi saw his sons in this state, he lost control and started hitting and cursing them. However, Hussam and Muhammad at that moment became aggressive towards their father, and because of their shouting at him, Manal woke up and rushed to them. Instead of scolding her sons, she argued with her husband and yelled at him for hitting them. Fathi became enraged, divorced Manal, and kicked her and her sons out of his house. From that moment, the story began. After the father expelled his wife and sons, the 3 of them left Fathi's house and went to Hussam's apartment in the Fustat area, affiliated with Old Cairo. They lived there, but their lives were difficult because the apartment was not yet ready for living. All it had were some old pieces of furniture that were previously in Fathi's house, which Hussam had moved to his apartment instead of throwing them away. Due to the difficulty of living in the apartment, and because both sons loved their father, Hussam and Muhammad tried to reconcile with him and convince him to take their mother back. But unfortunately, the 2 sons failed because their father refused any reconciliation and believed that they and Manal had crossed all boundaries with him. At the same time, Manal also refused to return to Fathi. After months, Manal and her sons' lives worsened more than before, and Muhammad and Hussam's income was not enough for them because their personal expenses were very high. With their difficult circumstances, an idea came to Manal's mind. Instead of her sons and their friends staying out late, they could come to their house and stay up there, and the money they would pay in any place they stayed, they would pay to her. At the same time, they would be comfortable and no one would bother them. Initially, Hussam and Muhammad were surprised by their mother's words, but in the end, they were convinced and agreed, and began to implement it. They both chose a few of their wealthy friends and brought them home. Day after day, Manal's sons liked the idea and saw that the profit was good, but Manal wanted to develop her idea a bit, so she told her sons that they could bring a girl to make drinks and serve them. Indeed, Hussam brought a girl he knew, and she started entertaining their friends. During one of their late nights, one of Hussam and Muhammad's friends went into the kitchen after the girl and sexually harassed her. The girl responded to him, and when Hussam saw him and was about to fight him, his mother stopped him and told him to leave him alone, because everything has a price. At that moment, Manal's plan succeeded, and she turned her house into a den of prostitution. When money increased in Hussam and Muhammad's hands, they started thinking about how to bring wealthy young men who would pay a lot of money to spend their evenings there. Not only that, but they themselves started bringing girls and employing them. Most of these girls were university graduates and highly beautiful. After a period, Manal and her son's situation changed, and their financial level became high. Each of them had a car, and Manal couldn't keep up with her customers, and her rooms were constantly busy. Because the work was increasing significantly, Manal suggested to her sons that they expand their activities and take an apartment near theirs with the same specifications, in a quiet area, in a building with most of its apartments empty, and the building also had to be without a doorman. After a lot of searching, they found an apartment with everything required. Mohammed bought it and furnished it, and moved part of their illicit activities to the new apartment. The business expanded, and their customers increased and were diverse, whether Egyptians or of different nationalities. Financial transactions became different, meaning the customer could pay in dollars or even Saudi riyals, and all of this depended on the agreement. But one day, a customer entered who looked wealthy from his appearance and clothes. This customer was named Amjad, and he knew Manal's apartment through a friend of Mohammed's. Amjad was a wealthy young man who caught the attention of everyone present, with his appearance and way of speaking, and the car he parked under the building. After he entered the apartment, Mohammed and Hussam offered him the girls they had, and Manal informed him that the hour cost £600. Amjad agreed and paid more than £600 for the hour, but he had a request. He didn't want to enter a room with any girl at the moment. He just wanted to spend his evening there, and if he felt comfortable and found what he wanted, he would be a permanent customer, and another time he would choose a girl from among them. Manal left him to his comfort, especially since he paid much more than she asked. As for him, he stayed up with them and spent a few hours, and then left. The next day, at 10 p.m., specifically on October 20th, 2015, Amjad went to them again, and Manal and her sons welcomed him warmly. On that day, there were 2 customers in the apartment, and since the apartment only had 2 rooms, there was no empty room. So Manal apologized to Amjad and told him that as soon as a room became available, she would let him in immediately. Amjad, after hearing her words, did not respond because he was enjoying talking to a girl sitting with him. After a while, a customer came out of a room, followed by a girl who was laughing. This girl told Manal to charge him extra money. At the same time, a young girl entered the room, holding a folded bedsheet. At that moment, Manal approached Amjad and told him that the room was being prepared. Amjad smiled and told her that he wanted to enter with the girl sitting with him, and again, paid much more than the hourly rate. After the room was ready, Manal asked Amjad to enter the room with the girl. Indeed, they entered the room, but before he closed the room door, he heard a loud knock on the apartment door. This startled Manal, and Mohammed and Hussam were also terrified. No one wanted to open the door at that moment, but with every second they delayed opening the door, the knocking increased. After a few moments, Mohammed opened the door, trembling. What they feared had happened. Mohammed found police officers in front of him, and they quickly filled the entire place, entered the bedrooms, and caught everyone present red-handed. The apartment was sealed after seizing all the evidence found in it, including 12 mobile phones and various currencies, which were $300 USD, 250 Qatari riyals, 100 Jordanian dinars, and 1550 Egyptian pounds. After their arrest and the initiation of the investigation, Manal and her sons denied all the accusations leveled against them by the prosecution, which were engaging in prostitution and facilitating it, even though all these accusations were documented with audio and video recordings, as stated in the official report, with the prosecution's permission for recording and surveillance. Furthermore, technical assistance from the Ministry of Interior was utilized when the forces entered the apartment. The facilities that were provided to the prosecution, and with its knowledge, were made after anonymous reports were filed about the apartment, and the necessary investigations were conducted. Based on this, a person was planted inside the network to gather information about them with audio and video through a person named Amjad. Here, the truth about Amjad was revealed. He was actually a police officer and managed to record everything happening inside the apartment with audio and video through hidden devices he carried. When confronted with all the evidence and pressured, Manal confessed that she was running a prostitution den, and her sons Mohammed and Hussam confessed that they were helping their mother manage the network. The confessions of the 3 defendants were alongside the confessions of the girls engaging in immoral acts. As for the 2 customers who were present, one was Egyptian, and the other was a famous businessman of Arab nationality. Both confessed that they were present in the apartment for illicit pleasure. After that, they were released from the Public Prosecution Office. In 2016, the Misdemeanor Court of Old Cairo issued its verdict against Manal M, with 3 years in prison with labor and enforcement, and against Mohammed and Hussam with 1 year in prison, and against 3 girls from the network with 6 months in prison, confiscation of the seized items, and obligating the defendants to pay court costs. Unlawful gains are never a legitimate means of earning a livelihood. No matter how much and how easy the gain, its punishment will eventually come in this world before the hereafter. And God said in his holy book, "And do not approach unlawful sexual intercourse. Indeed, it is ever an immorality, and is evil as a way." This means that no matter how many years pass over this shameful act, it will eventually be exposed, and shame will follow its perpetrator and all those close to them for the rest of their lives. And here, the story ends. I will see you in the next episode, God willing, and may you have a good and happy night. And don't forget to write in the comments about the cases you would like me to talk about. Good night, goodbye.